When you're over 60, your eyesight becomes more than just a sense, and it's a lifeline. I know how frustrating it is to feel like your vision is slipping. That's why today, as someone who's worked with eyes for over 30 years, I want to gently guide you away from 5 foods that might be harming your sight. Let's start with something simple, but surprisingly common, that crispy, golden side dish we've all enjoyed, fried potatoes. I know it sounds harmless, especially when it's been part of family meals for generations. But hear me out, when potatoes are fried at high temperatures, especially in old or reused oil, a compound called acrylamide is formed. Acrylamide isn't something you can taste or smell, but studies have shown it may have harmful effects on nerve tissues, including those delicate ones in our eyes. For seniors, our natural ability to combat oxidative stress begins to decline. That means our eyes are more vulnerable to damage from chemicals, free radicals, and inflammation. And the retina, the part of the eye responsible for processing light, is especially sensitive. If something in your diet is putting extra strain on it, the effects can sneak up on you. Blurry spots, light sensitivity, slower focus. Not overnight, no, but steadily. You might be thinking, I've eaten fries all my life. Why would it suddenly become a problem now? And that's a fair question. The truth is, as we age, the body's defenses slow down. The liver processes toxins more slowly, blood flow to the eyes changes, and tiny blood vessels become more fragile. So foods that weren't harmful at 40 might become less friendly at 70, especially if they're eaten often, and especially if they're fried. I want to share a moment I had with a man named Thomas. He's 72 and lives in a small town in Ohio. He came to me for a routine eye exam. Nothing serious, he said, just noticing that his night vision was getting worse, and he felt like lights had more of a glare lately. We did the usual tests, and yes, some age-related changes were there. But what caught my attention was something, he said almost casually. I eat fries almost every day. Always have. Now, I'm not one to jump to conclusions, but that stood out. I asked him how he prepared them, and it turned out he was using a small fryer at home with oil he reused for days. I gently explained what acrylamide is, how it can build up, and how aging eyes might react to that sort of chemical exposure. I suggested a change, not drastic, just gradual. 2 months later, Thomas came back. He'd switched to roasting sweet potatoes in the oven with olive oil and herbs. It's not the same, he told me with a laugh, but my eyes don't feel as strained at night. He even said his wife had joined him, and they were experimenting with new recipes. Another example is a lovely woman named Margaret, 68, from Kansas. She had dry eyes and was using drops constantly. We went over her diet, and again, fried potatoes were a regular treat. She was hesitant at first, but once she started baking her potatoes instead of frying them, she said the gritty feeling in her eyes began to ease. It didn't solve everything, but it helped more than she expected. What often helps, and I've seen this work time and again, is simply switching the way you prepare your potatoes. Instead of frying them, try baking them with a bit of olive oil and rosemary, or steaming and seasoning them lightly. You don't have to give up comfort food, just bring it closer to what your body needs now. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Even reducing fried foods to once a week instead of every day can give your eyes some breathing room. And over time, they'll thank you for it. Your eyes are like a pair of windows. They've let you see so much life already. But even the clearest windows need gentle care. You don't need to change everything overnight. Just start with one small habit and let that be the beginning of something brighter. You deserve to see the world as clearly as it sees you. Now let me take you to another food that seems harmless, but often hides in plain sight: canned corn. It's sweet, it's easy to prepare, and for many of us, it's been a go-to side dish since childhood. But here's the thing. Once corn is processed and packed in cans, especially those meant for long shelf life, it often comes loaded with added sugars, salt, and preservatives like sulfites. These ingredients may not seem like a big deal at first, but they can quietly contribute to inflammation in the body and in the eyes. As we age, our eyes become more sensitive to shifts in internal chemistry. Inflammation, even low-grade, can affect the delicate blood vessels that supply nutrients and oxygen to the retina. Over time, this can lead to slower healing, more dryness, and even increase the risk of age-related macular degeneration. When you combine that with the natural decrease in tear production after 60, it becomes a recipe for discomfort. Gritty eyes, blurred vision, or that tired, sore feeling at the end of the day. If you're used to grabbing a can of corn for convenience, I completely understand. The texture is soft, it's easy to chew, and it mixes well with other dishes. But that same convenience often comes with hidden ingredients that may be nudging your eye health in the wrong direction. Especially for folks who already deal with blood pressure issues or early signs of diabetes, all that extra sodium and sugar is a quiet threat. Let me tell you about Brenda. She's 68 and lives outside of Houston. Sweet lady, full of life. She came to see me because she'd started feeling discomfort in her eyes every morning, as if she hadn't rested at all. They looked a little puffy, and she described a dry burn when blinking. After some tests, we ruled out major issues, but during our talk she mentioned how she loved canned corn and added it to her meals almost daily. I asked her to bring in a few labels from the brands she used. Sure enough, they had added sugar, salt, and a long list of preservatives. We had a good laugh when she said, "I thought I was eating healthy." I encouraged her to try frozen corn, or better yet, fresh corn on the cob when in season. Just boil or steam it. No sugar, no salt, no fuss. 3 weeks later, she emailed me, "You won't believe this, but I'm waking up without the burning now." Her eye puffiness had gone down, and she said she started reading her morning paper again without needing a cold compress. Another patient, Harold, 74 from Michigan, had borderline high blood pressure and also loved his canned veggies. Once he began choosing frozen corn, plain, no additives, and seasoning it himself, he noticed fewer eye floaters and less eye strain. No miracles, just gentle improvement. And that's the kind of progress I always love to hear about. One of the easiest ways to make a healthy shift is by swapping canned corn for frozen or fresh versions. Frozen corn is often picked at its peak and flash frozen, keeping nutrients intact without extra chemicals. If you enjoy warm dishes, you can steam it, sauté it lightly in olive oil, or mix it into soups. Try to read labels carefully. Choose corn with no added sugar or salt. And when you can, choose corn still on the cob. It might take a few more minutes to cook, but it gives you the flavor without the hidden trouble. I know change feels like a lot sometimes, but this isn't about giving up the foods you love. It's about giving your body the chance to love them back. Think of it like swapping out an old light bulb for one that's easier on the eyes. The light is still there, just softer, kinder and more lasting. Here's another one that catches people by surprise. Those tangy, crunchy pickles and jars of sauerkraut that many of us grew up loving. They add flavor to sandwiches, spark up a bland meal, and they feel nostalgic. But when you're over 60, your body starts handling salt, acid, and additives a little differently, and your eyes can be one of the first places where that imbalance quietly shows up. Most store-bought pickled vegetables, whether it's cucumbers, cabbage, or carrots, are preserved in high amounts of vinegar and salt. That brine might give the crunch and taste you love, but it can also raise your blood pressure, disrupt your fluid balance, and in some cases, trigger inflammation throughout the body. Now, you might not think your eyes have anything to do with pickles, but they do. The blood vessels in your eyes are incredibly tiny and fragile. When your body holds on to excess sodium, it can lead to fluid retention, which puts pressure on those vessels. For older adults, this can result in puffiness around the eyes, eye strain, and in some cases elevated intraocular pressure, which is one of the risk factors for glaucoma. Your vision might feel a little foggy or your eyes a bit tense, and the cause could be sitting innocently next to your sandwich. I remember one of my patients, George. He's 75 and a proud retired truck driver from Arkansas. We met for a regular checkup and he told me, "Doc, my eyes feel tired all the time. I can't read more than 10 minutes without rubbing them." He also said he was waking up with slightly swollen eyelids. As we talked about his meals, he lit up telling me about the homemade pickles he and his wife kept stocked in the fridge. "I eat them with every lunch," he said proudly. When I gently brought up the salt content and how it might be related to the puffiness and tension in his eyes, he was skeptical at first. But George was the kind of guy who liked a challenge. He agreed to cut back for a month and try lower sodium options. Instead, he and his wife started fermenting their own vegetables using just water and minimal salt. No vinegar, no sugar. Not only did they find the taste surprisingly good, but when George came back 6 weeks later, his eye pressure had dropped slightly, and he said he felt less pressure behind the eyes. Then there's Darlene, 69, from North Carolina. She wasn't a big eater, but loved store-bought sauerkraut with her dinner. She didn't think much of it until her optometrist noticed minor swelling in the vessels behind her eyes. After making the switch to naturally fermented veggies, no vinegar, just thyme and natural bacteria, her eye scans a few months later looked cleaner, calmer. She even said her eyes felt cooler by the end of the day. One of the simplest changes you can make is choosing naturally fermented vegetables over store-bought pickles or sauerkraut. Look for products that say raw or naturally fermented, and check that they contain only vegetables, water, and a small amount of salt, no vinegar or sugar. If you're up for it, you can even try making your own. It's easier than it sounds, and there are simple recipes out there with just 2 or 3 ingredients. Even just reducing pickled foods to once a week can help your eyes feel less tired and irritated. You've got enough to carry in life. Your eyes shouldn't have to carry the burden of hidden salt and acid too. Think of every small change like wiping a foggy window clean. The more clearly you see, the more fully you can enjoy the moments that matter, and those moments are worth it. Let's turn to something that often feels comforting and even healthy: canned tomatoes. Whether it's for soups, pasta sauces, or chili, a lot of us have grown used to grabbing a can of tomatoes from the pantry and tossing it into the pot. It's quick, familiar, and affordable, but there's a hidden concern here that I want you to know about, especially if you're over 60 and starting to notice little changes in your eyes, like floaters, blurry edges, or increased sensitivity to light. The problem isn't the tomato itself. In fact, fresh tomatoes are rich in lycopene, a powerful antioxidant that can actually support eye health. But once tomatoes are processed and packed into metal cans, especially if those cans are lined with BPA, bisphenol A, they can carry substances that may disrupt hormone balance and increase inflammation. BPA is a chemical used in many food containers, and while manufacturers are phasing it out, it's still commonly found, especially in acidic foods like tomatoes, that can draw more of the chemical out of the can lining. For older adults, our natural ability to detoxify and manage inflammation slows down with age. That means even low exposure to chemicals like BPA can have a bigger impact. The eyes, being filled with fine-tuned blood vessels and light-sensitive tissue, are especially vulnerable. That low-grade inflammation doesn't cause sharp pain, but it can make your eyes feel more tired, more sensitive, and more prone to tiny visual disturbances over time. Let me tell you about Helen. She's 70 and lives in Missouri with her sister. She's the kind of person who always has something simmering on the stove: tomato-based soups, stews, sauces. When she visited me, she complained about frequent floaters in her vision and a dull, achy feeling in the back of her eyes by afternoon. She had already been using eye drops and trying screen breaks, but the problem persisted. We talked through her meals and I asked her what kind of tomatoes she used. Cans, always cans. They're easier, she said. I gently explained the issue with BPA and how the acidity in tomatoes makes the leaching more likely. She had never heard of that. Helen agreed to try something different for a month, buying fresh tomatoes when possible, and when using packaged ones, choosing tomato puree in glass jars or BPA-free cartons. She also started making small batches of tomato sauce from scratch and freezing them. 6 weeks later, she came back. "My floaters haven't gone away," she said, "but I'm noticing fewer by the end of the day. My eyes don't feel as heavy." Her sister even started freezing extra tomatoes during the summer to help them keep it up year-round. Then there's Marvin, 73, from Nevada. He had chronic dry eyes and used canned tomatoes every other day for chili and pasta. After switching to boxed tomato puree and fresh cherry tomatoes, he noticed less grittiness and better comfort reading. In the evenings, he told me, "I didn't think it was food doing that much, but now I'm convinced." One of the best ways to protect your eyes while still enjoying tomatoes is to be mindful of how they're packaged. Choose tomatoes in BPA-free cartons or glass containers. Better yet, use fresh tomatoes when you can, and make your own simple sauces in batches to freeze for easy use later. Look for labels that say BPA-free or no preservatives. Acidic foods like tomatoes draw more chemicals from packaging, so avoiding metal cans can go a long way in reducing that risk. Even small swaps like this can support your eye comfort over time. Our eyes don't ask for much, just a little care and attention, and sometimes the things we think are helping might be quietly wearing them down. But knowledge is power. By making thoughtful swaps, you give your eyes a lighter load to carry. You're not giving up flavor, you're adding peace of mind. Finally, let's talk about something many consider healthy: leafy greens like spinach and sorrel. Now, don't get me wrong. Greens are essential and they bring a lot of benefits to the table. But when it comes to certain types, especially in large amounts, they can become tricky for your eyes, particularly after 60, when your body's balance becomes more delicate. Spinach and sorrel are both high in a substance called oxalates. Oxalates aren't dangerous in small amounts. In fact, they're found in lots of healthy foods. But when consumed daily or in large portions, they can begin to interfere with calcium absorption and may contribute to the formation of crystals in the body. For seniors, that can affect more than just bones and kidneys. It can also impact the blood vessels, including those that feed your eyes. Good eye health relies on steady, clean blood flow to nourish the retina. When oxalates accumulate, they may contribute to subtle blockages or irritation in the microcirculation system. Over time, that can mean more strain on the eyes, more dryness, or trouble focusing. You might not feel it right away, but over months or years, daily spinach salads could quietly work against your vision instead of for it. Let me tell you about Jake. He's 66, a retired music teacher from Oregon. A few years ago, he decided to go green with his meals. Every morning, he had a smoothie packed with raw spinach, and lunch was often a spinach salad. He felt proud of his routine, and rightly so. It was healthy, light, and full of vitamins. But after about 6 months, he came to see me because he was experiencing more frequent tension behind his eyes and trouble adjusting his vision between close-up and distant objects. We checked his eyes and found no major disease, but there were signs of eye fatigue that didn't match the rest of his health profile. We talked through his diet, and when I heard how much spinach he was eating, I shared with him what I knew about oxalates. It wasn't about fear or alarm, just balance. I encouraged him to mix things up. Instead of spinach every day, try broccoli, romaine, arugula, or even cooked greens, which have lower oxalate content. Jake took it seriously. He started rotating his greens, cutting back to spinach just twice a week, and always lightly cooking it before blending. Within 2 months, he returned and said his eyes felt more awake and less tight. He even noticed he could read sheet music again without needing to squint. Then there's Linda, 70, from Pennsylvania. She had been eating sorrel soup regularly, a childhood favorite. But her ophthalmologist noticed a change in her retinal blood flow and asked her to review her diet. Once she reduced sorrel and added more variety, her next scan looked better, and she reported less sensitivity to bright lights. One of the simplest things you can do is rotate your greens. Don't rely on spinach or sorrel every day. Instead, try broccoli, kale, bok choy, or romaine lettuce. They're gentler on your system and still provide the nutrients your body needs. If you love spinach, consider lightly steaming it before eating. That can lower the oxalate content significantly. And if you're making green smoothies, try alternating with other leafy vegetables to give your eyes and vessels a break. Your body knows how to thrive when you give it balance. Think of your eyes as a garden. They bloom best when they're not overwhelmed by one single element. Even the healthiest food can become too much of a good thing. You deserve to enjoy what you eat and still see the world clearly. If even one tip today helped you look at your plate differently, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell for more simple, kind health advice. You are not alone in this, and your eyes deserve all the gentle care they can get.